Okay. I believe we're live now.
Yay.
Yay. We are waiting for everyone. This is the Lioness Summit. If you're already hopped on and watching on Facebook, I want to welcome you. I'm Darla Morrison. I will be your host. And I just want to tell you, go ahead and if you have time to grab a coffee or your favorite beverage and get a pen and pencil and a piece of paper, because you do not want to miss what we're going to be sharing with you today. We're going to be taking you on a courage tour. And these women are full of courage, and it didn't happen overnight, and we want to help you. We're here about you. This is going to be about you. We've been around women who, and we've listened to women who are lovely, intelligent, and accomplished. And the sad thing is that they second guess themselves. We've all been there before, and we've second guessed ourselves. And climbing out of that is so important. And quite honestly, I'm tired of being there, feeling like I'm less than. And so this is what the Lioness Summit is all about. Every month I'll be coming to you, introducing you to 3 experts. And I mean that to the core. You're going to find out how amazing these women are. I know them personally. I've read their books. I've been a part of their teaching, their mentoring. And quite honestly, the Lioness Summit, our topic today is going to be about women empowering or shining light on other women. And that's the whole reason the Lioness Summit is here. These women have poured their intelligence and invested their time in me. And we want to do the same for you and give you a chance to step out with courage into your calling, into your goals, whether it is starting a new healthy lifestyle, whether it is correcting relationships, or even if you want to go back to college or finish up your education, asking for that next promotion, whatever it is, we want to be here and helping you. And today we'll be talking about some very specific topics from the background of each of these women. So I'm going to introduce you to these women right now. So no specific order because they're all awesome. Patty Mason. Patty is an amazing author and speaker. She's an award-winning author, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about what she's been doing. But she has been writing courses and doing videos and has a strong ministry for people who have been through depression. And that's very dear to her heart, and I'll let her share that. I'll let that be her story for you. I'm glad. Thank you, Patty, for being here.
Oh, thank you, Darla, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so our next one is Beth Townsend. Beth, and Patty is in Nashville. Patty, Nashville, yay. So Beth is not from Nashville. She is from Baton Rouge. Where in Louisiana are you? Baton Rouge.
I'm in
I can't even.
Yeah.
Oh, Baton Rouge. Okay.
Yeah, right here in not far from the LSU campus where we say, "Go Tigers."
Well, I'll roll Tide, so we won't get started. Yeah. That'll be another episode. So Beth is also, oh my goodness, she has a TV show, Life on Purpose. She is also an author and a speaker, and she has an amazing story that she's coming from too, and how she speaks to women with her excellence. And so excited to have you here. Thank you, Beth. And now introducing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm chattering. Next is Csilla Muscan. Csilla is also living in Nashville. She's come from a long way. I'll let her tell you where she is originally from. Csilla has a wonderful platform that I've got to be a part of as well. She's an author, a speaker, a singer. She's a mentor and a coach. She works with women, helping them to understand how to captivate not only their voice and their message, but their lives. And I've been a recipient of her as well. So thank you, Csilla, for being here.
It's an honor. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
So what I'd like for us to do is just hear a little bit from each of these speakers before we start getting into our own questions about women supporting women. So I'll just start off and give each one of y'all just a few moments to share a little bit about yourself And we'll go ahead. I'm going to do reverse order. I'm going to start with you, Csilla, if that's okay. And just love to hear a little bit about you, your background, what inspired you to be where you're at today.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. So, I am very passionate about really encouraging women to not only find their voice, but own their voice, own their story, and share it with others. And it comes, of course, from my personal story. I struggled for many, many years to really find my voice and own my voice. And it has to do with the fact that I was born into a country that was a communist country at the time. If I speak long enough, I know you're gonna pick up on my accent. I don't have a southern accent. It's a northern accent, but it's a way northern accent because I was born in Romania in 1981, and communism was blooming in Romania at the time. And I was born into a country where you were not only told what to say, when to speak up, but you were also told what to do. And then on top of that, I was born into a home where it was made to me clear to me very early on that I was not wanted. And so in my own family, I felt like my voice was not needed. My life didn't really matter. At the age of 18, I found out that I was supposed to be aborted. And it's really through miracle that I am here today. And so for the first 30 years of my life, I really struggled seeing that there was any worth to my life, that there was any value, that I brought any value to this world. And because of that, I really struggled speaking up. I was always afraid of what people were going to say or think about me if I really shared my opinion, if I really let my personality shine. And I always felt like I needed to kind of just be in the shadows. And it was right around, I think I was 30 years old when God started a transformative work in me. He has taken me through a lot in the last 10 years, and I'm so grateful for it. It was not an easy journey, but I wouldn't be where I am today. And I honestly don't believe that I would be able to coach women the way that I do today if it wasn't for the last 10 years, what God has brought me through. So that's in short my story. That's where I come from. I love seeing women come alive with purpose. I love seeing women really stepping into the space that God created for them and using and owning their voice unashamed and unapologetically.
Thank you. So in working with you, Csilla, I've also had a chance to be a part of all of your coaching, your mentoring, and everything that you have just poured into women. Why women? Why did you want to start this? I mean, was this just, that just blows my mind because you've got a fabulous voice. If y'all ever have a chance to hear her songs, please go online. She's got an incredible gift of singing. And why not going into singing?
Well, at first I did. That's how I started out. When I was 18 years old, I started singing as a professional. I was touring all over the world. And that's what I did for many, many years. And I'm going to be honest with you. I never in a million years did I think that I was going to be working with women. I feel like the women can be dramatic, and I was just like, I don't want to deal with that. But over the last 10 years, I just had so many, and even before that, I had so many women who really poured into me. Like, I honestly don't believe I would be the kind of person I am today if it wasn't for those women who were mentoring me and poured their lives into me. Mm. And I see the power of women mentoring women. And I think it's just showing that example that women, don't have to be out, getting each other or tripping each other up, but we can actually support one another, and that there is so much power when we come together and we shine the spotlight on the other person's strengths. that it doesn't take away from who we are and our accomplishments, but that, you know, it can be so powerful. And so over the years, God really just worked on my heart, and I absolutely love working with women. I wouldn't have it any other way now.
I love that. Well, you do have a wonderful, oh my gosh, just the way that you have clarity in your conversations, and when you're sharing with people, you're very organized in your thoughts. And to me, someone who is a 7 on the Enneagram, and I'm a type A personality, and I'm all over the place, I appreciate that in you. And like I said, I've been a recipient of it, and I've known several other women who've been in the group with you too that have been successful because of what you have poured into them. So I want to thank you for putting up with us and our drama.
Well, I'm dramatic too. I just like to fool myself into thinking that I'm not.
All right. Patty, thank you. Patty, do you mind sharing a little bit about where you're coming from and why you're doing what you're doing? What inspired you?
Yeah, our ministry was birthed out of my painful past, Liberty in Christ. It came from a time that I actually thought my life was over. I was in a place in life where everything should have been platinum. I had a husband who loved me. I had 3 beautiful, healthy children. I had a nice home, a successful career. According to the world standards, I had it all together, and I should have just been doing really great. And I wasn't. I was battling depression to the point of being suicidal, and I had given up. I had given up hope because I had tried to fix myself and couldn't. I turned to family and friends who could not help me. I turned to doctors with a get fixed quick mentality, thinking that if I could just get some pills, I would be fine. It got to a point where on the day I was ready to take my life, I cried out to a God I didn't know. I want to explain that because I grew up in church. I believed in God. I even believed Jesus died on the cross for my sins, but I had no relationship with him. I did not know him. But in this moment, I was desperate. I could not see any other way out other than to die. And so I just reached out to God at that point, and I begged him to help me. And that was the day I got a miracle, and I was instantly healed from depression. As a result of that, God taught me how to tie rags, how to show women, and even some men. We've even helped some men and some youth, but I primarily focus on women. And we show them how to tie the rags, to reach into the wells where they are, so they have something to hold on to the power of God's word, to show them that God loves them and God cares about them. Because so often when we are struggling with depression, we've given up. We believe no one loves us, no one cares for us. So our ministry was birthed out of that painful past to let women know they are not alone, they are dearly loved, and there is hope.
I love that. And to me, there is so much power when we have gone through something that absolutely just rocks our world, that shatters us, that just puts us face down on the ground. And when we turn that around and, like you said, call out to God, and we lean into the fact that there is more to us than our hurt, there's more to us than our pain, and to have the courage to step out of that, there's no silver bullet.
No.
And that's what I love about knowing this, is that it's a process, and there's joy in that process, because then you can turn around and help others through that.
Yes.
So thank you. And thank you, Patty, for doing that and for listening to your call.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, darling.
Okay, Beth, I would love to hear from you about all that you've been doing in your background between, you have been a publisher for about 32 years now, right? With the Christian magazine?
Well, we published it. We're not publishing it anymore, but go ahead. I'll reroute back around to that.
Okay. And then you have been doing a TV show that was born out of just somebody asking you a question. So tell us about that.
Well, yeah, I'd like to say I come from had great problems, and what I've learned in my journey is that, we all come from families that have problems, but I was on my own at 17, like the day out of high school that I graduated. My mom moved away. Her marriage was at its end, and my dad had been married 9 times. It had just been total chaos in my home. And when my mom had her 3rd marriage dissolved, she had nothing left. She had no money. So, I'm the 5th child. I'm the youngest. It was time to sink or swim. So, in a short, I went to work. And at 17, when you're on your own and you have no place to live and you have no job and you have no college education, when you go to work, you mean that work has to work for you. So I went to work, and in about 15 years, 12 to 15 years, I climbed the corporate ladder in the field of property management. And I found myself, I was very successful. And the reason that I was successful is because I knew what I didn't have, the skills that I didn't have, and I came up with my own plan of what would make me successful. And that was a great work ethic, a great attitude, and a really good just company rah-rah cheerleader person. And that promoted me past people that had much bigger educations. They had a lot more experience. I was really young because I started working very early. And I found myself teaching seminars. I was teaching seminars because I was great at my job. I was like a cheerleader. I understood my industry. So people would ask me, would you come and speak about this? Leadership. Would you come and speak about, return on investments? Would you come and speak? And when I did that, people started asking me, well, how did you know your purpose? And the reason they assumed I knew my purpose is because I was good at what I was doing. So therefore they assumed that was my purpose. Well, I was young. I didn't know much about it, but, somebody asked me, how did you know your purpose? And then somebody else asked me, how did you know your purpose? And I began to really think about that question. And it was a God thing for me because I had been saved, but I knew very little about what Christianity meant. And that question started changing everything about me because I had become very independent. I had become a go-getter. I had become very self-sufficient. I had become successful. But that question began to make me think about, wait, what is successful? What is purpose? Am I really living one? Do I really have one? And I began to really wrestle with that question. And then, at that point, I'm a professional speaker. When my husband and I get married, and I want to stay home with my children to raise them, and we have children, I decided I was going to write this book called People with Passion. And I started interviewing people that wake up every day. They know what God's called them to do. They're doing it. And I began to ask them, how did you know? How did you do? What are the secrets that you can share? And that was 20 years ago that I started that process. And I did. I published a magazine in Baton Rouge for 3.5 years. We did 10,000 copies for 43 editions. And let me just tell you, magazine is a hard work. From there, we decided to do the TV show because it was more digital and things like that. So mine is all about purpose. I like to interview people that can shed some light on what seems to be a difficult topic and make it more simplified. So that's how we end up talking about life on purpose and how to live life on purpose.
And I love it. So I know for me, trying to find... Growing up, we didn't hear that a lot in my generation. It was, I don't know about all of y'all, but when I was growing up, there was not a lot of self-depth talk and self-reflection. It was get out there and work. And also for women at my age, I'll never forget when I was in high school, and they were going like, so do you want to be a nurse? And I was going like, no. Do you want to be a teacher? And I was going like, no. And they're going like, well, what are you going to do? And now women have so much. I love that my daughters have just, the whole world's at their feet. They can choose from anything. So as an adult, they have been taught and been raised, what is your purpose? You may not be a nurse. You may not be a teacher. What is your purpose? So with that background of what I just said, how did y'all start learning the importance of what is my purpose? Patty, how about you?
I think I'm still trying to figure that out. No. Honestly, what is my purpose? I think for me, it's really quite simple. Bottom line for me is to know God and make him known. And that for me is what drives me every single day. And because I know I had a painful past, even though it's interesting, I think a lot of people think, well, when they hear that I had this great life, they think somehow I had it all together, but I didn't. And honestly, the truth of the matter is, oftentimes when you think a person has it really all together, they're the ones who are most at risk. So I think for a purpose-driven life, I think you need to understand who you are as a person, and who you were created to be. And I think so much will stem from that. Don't look at success as worldly things, as having a lot of money or having a lot of fame. That's not success. I mean, look at all the people who have all of that and they're miserable. So I think a lot of it is you just need to know who you are and who you were created to be.
Yeah. I remember when Rick Warren first came out with Purpose Driven Life. Y'all remember that?
Yeah.
I was so excited. And we all know chapter 1, it's not about you. And when I first, we went as a family, and I remember going through that book with my daughters. We did that as a devotion after we had gone through all of that. And we walked through the chapters and all the thoughts. And that stuck with me, that it's not about you. And I even remember that coming into this, being worried about all the technology and, am I going to say the right things? This isn't about me. This is about you, the attendees who are watching. This is about you as my guest speakers. This is about the message that you as experts have to share. And this is about us coming together. It's not about just me, because I'm not perfect and I'm going to make mistakes, and y'all will too, but I was more worried about me making mistakes. But when we do that, when we put the focus on us, I think we do lose our purpose. We lose sight of it. We don't lose our purpose, we lose sight of our purpose, because we get so self-absorbed, not in a selfish way, but we just are so consumed with ourselves. And Csilla, I wanted to ask you about that too. You grew up in a communistic country, so I'm sure they didn't talk about, I'm sure you're not raised on, let's do a lot of self-depth reflection and finding your purpose, because you grew up in a totally different environment. When did you start realizing the importance of trying to find out my purpose? Why am I here, God?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a country where they did the opposite. They were trying to keep you from actually reading too many books and trying to actually understand what your passions are and what your purpose is. I think for me, it started right around the time when I gave birth to my first child. I can relate to Patty's story so much, because I was struggling with major depression. And I thought to myself that if I just had a child, everything would be okay in my life. And I kept begging God for a child. And then I got a child, and I realized that no external thing can fix the internal struggle that was happening inside of me. And I love... there's a famous psychologist, and I'm kind of skipping on his name, but he says that the opposite of unhappiness is the opposite of happiness is not unhappiness, it's lack of purpose. So that when we don't have purpose in life, and purpose means having something beyond yourself. As you said, as soon as we put focus on ourselves, we can easily become in despair, right? Because if we're looking for strength within ourselves, we're not going to get very far. And so I think finding our purpose always comes back to, as Patty said before, knowing who God created you to be, knowing what are the strengths and talents that He has given you, the experiences that you have gone through, and how can you use those experiences, whether good or bad, and make them meaningful by actually helping other people who are going through something similar or difficult. And so for me, it started when I was 30. I first started figuring out my purpose by going to a therapist, by going to counseling. And then once I've gone through that and dealt with my past, then God has taken me on to the next step and trying to figure out, okay, who has he created me to be? What are my strengths? What are my experiences? And then how can I use those experiences to bless other people? And I agree with Patty. I think it's an ongoing journey. I don't think we're ever gonna know clearly. And I think that our purpose, how we manifest it, changes over time. I think our ultimate purpose is to always glorify God, to live in a way that reflects God. But how that manifests in each season, I think, looks different.
That's so much wisdom. You know, that didn't come easy, did it?
No, it's still not easy.
It's a learning process every day. I know for me that is what I have to remember every day, is to give myself some grace and to take it a step at a time and allow a process for all of that. Yeah. So Beth, how about you? When did you realize, I do have a purpose and I know what it is now?
Well, like, you know, it is to know God and to make him known. But I believe the way to change the world is one story at a time. And so what I've learned through being in media is, you know, when you pick up a book or you're channel surfing or you watch a movie, if it's not very good, we turn the page, we go to the next channel. We're in a world that has to be really, you have to be great at sharing your story. So a lot of what we do with Life on Purpose is help people understand the power of their story. If you think of the story of Jesus, it changed the whole world. And yet we're modeled after him. So being able to share our story effectively is why we did the magazine. It's why we do the TV show. So I believe that purpose is very much a process, but God uses us by using our life, the things that we've been through, to help others go through that. So crafting our life story and doing story work and going back and, you know, being able to share in a minute or two, you know, I had a prodigal and here's how we overcame that and we made it through, or I came through my dysfunctional family. I remember going into a writer's conference one time, and I walked in and they said, nobody wants to hear your life story. And, you know, everybody wants to write their book and they want to write their life story. But the truth is, what people want from a Christian, someone who can help them, is how can your life story help my life story right now today? So people want us, Christ followers, strong women, to come alongside them to help them know that your story is evidence of Christ walked with you through this season of your life. He was with me. He taught me how to get through this. So changing the world one story at a time is the most powerful thing we can do, is get our story, get it down, get it right, make it a great movie, and be prepared to share with others the hope that we've called. You know, in Revelation, it says we overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. But our testimony has to be practiced. It can't be long in today's world. So we have to be able to come in and share with others what God has done in our life, what Jesus has meant in our hearts. And then that is how we share him, because we're not in a world who believes in the Bible. And, there are a lot of people that do. If you tell someone who's not a Bible believer, I believe Jesus loves me because the Bible tells me so, we lose them because they don't believe in the Bible. But if we say, let me tell you about the Jesus who walked me through being on my own at 17. It was really tough, but he was there with me. Or walked through family dynamics that were really, really hard. I think we bear testimony to the fact that Jesus is risen. He is with us and he is walking with us. And we share that with others so they know to invite him in, because that is purpose.
I like that. So when I was listening to y'all, I'd like to ask you too, in your journey along the way, finding your purpose, understanding what God's doing in your life, and just seeing where you came from and the hurt and the pain. Can you share with me, each of you, was there a specific woman or group of women, or maybe there were several women along the path? Because like you said, Csilla, earlier, at different times your purpose is going to change a little bit according to whatever journey you're at. And you started out as singing, and God has raised you up in that, and you also are now a speaker mentor. So I would just like to hear from each of y'all along the way, what women empowered you or invested in you, or it made a positive impact in your life.
I can start.
Okay.
For me, I remember my very first mentor when I was just 16 years old. And just like Beth, I was already living on my own at the age of 16. And my neighbor kind of took me under her wings, and she was a godly woman. And she just really took time to pray with me and introduce Jesus to me. She took me to church with her and her family, and really, I just learned so much from her, what it looks like to be a godly woman, and someone who takes care of her family, someone who really pours into her children. So she was my very first mentor. And then, of course, along the way, again, each season, God brought a woman, and somehow it, of course, no coincidence, God always knows what our biggest desire or needs are. Somehow he always brought someone who needed to mentor me in a specific area of my life. And I can say that in every season, when I was just being a new mother, or when I started my business, God brought women who could mentor me in that very specific need and area that I needed mentoring in.
I've had the same in my life as well. And I looking back, I even remember women who they were just doing their everyday, ordinary life. They didn't see themselves as heroes. And one thing that I love about mentoring the women who poured their life into me, it was just their daily, they were just being themselves. But they didn't mind bringing me along, taking time to teach me, invest in me. And the exciting thing about that is, as a Christ believer and as a kingdom-minded person, I think get to see them again and thank them one day for what they poured into my life. And I'm talking about that. Patty, how about you? With women that stand out for you?
Yeah, I agree with Csilla. It's a seasonal thing. It's amazing how God will bring specific people in your life at a specific time to teach you a specific lesson or a specific thing or a training. And I think it's amazing. There has been not only women in my life, but men in my life over the years who have just poured into me. But there's one in particular that she was a very well-known speaker, and she was highly sought after. She did like 60 talks a year. And it amazed me how she took the time to pour into somebody like me when I was just starting out. And there was, she would take small groups of us aside for like 4 days, and we'd go on these retreats. And she would take this time to coach us in every area of public ministry, specifically speaking. And I was very blessed by that, because she didn't have to do that. It was something she felt the Lord laid on her heart to do, because she knew she was going to be retiring soon. And she felt that the Lord was telling her to pass the baton and to start raising up other speakers. So I am very, very thankful for the mentors in my life, whether it was personal or teaching me how to pray, or teaching me how to study God's word, or teaching me how to speak, or how to write better, or how to run a nonprofit. I mean, all the different things. And I'm just very thankful for all the mentors in my life. Like Csilla said, I wouldn't be where I am today without them.
Oh, none of us would be. And that's what I love about this, is the specificity that God is so intimate, and he knows exactly what guidance in. And that's why we're wanting to help the people who are attending today and watching, for you to understand that we get that, and we want to pay it forward. And wherever you're at in life, we want to be there to offer you some guidance and some resources that God has put in our own life. So Beth, how about you? there any special women? Because it sounds like, it's interesting that when I listen with you and Csilla, y'all both started out really early in life, being the adult. Everybody else was hanging out and just chilling out. You were adulting, and adulting is hard. It's very hard.
Well, I would say, when I started the interview process, when I was interviewing others in preparation for this book that I was going to publish all these years ago, there's a couple of women that I interviewed that really, I think I'm going to interview them to share their story, but truly they were shaping my story. And a couple of those, Florence Littauer was a big influence on me. She, when I started out with the idea of writing and speaking, she had what was class services, Christian leaders, authors, and speaker services. I went through their program, but I got to be friends with her, and she was a powerful woman. So not only was she a Christian, she had an impeccable image. She taught me how to be alert to life. She taught me that words should be as in silver boxes. In other words, your words will shape your life. She was really an incredible mentor for me for several years. And she just had such a mark on me. And another one that I interviewed, there are several, but there was a lady called Ruth Schnappmeyer. And Ruth was, like many of the people that we know, she was doing a lot of church work. She was on this committee and that committee, and she was doing good things. And she was sitting in a meeting one day with, it was a bunch of leaders from her church, very big church in Atlanta, very prominent leaders. And it's like God said to her, Ruth, when are you going to stop doing church work and start doing the work of the church? Because what she was working on, not that it's not important, but it was a privacy fence for the pastor's house. So she left that meeting that day and went and started a homeless shelter for women and children. And she, I got to know her, I interviewed her, and just the way she went about what God called her to do, it wasn't easy. Purpose is not easy, but purpose is a mindset. It is one of the things you commit to. Purpose is faith. It is, okay, God, you've called me to do this. So I'm believing that you're going to see me through. And I'm accepting that it's not going to be easy, because the work he's doing in us is really what's important. It's not the end game, but it's the process of what he's doing in our hearts. And so those two women, I would say, really shaped me. The humility they both had, but the power of Florence Littauer of being a woman in pulpits, preaching, they just both had such a huge impact on me in different ways. But those would be two I would be easy to refer to, both of which are no longer with us.
So you get to thank them one day too, don't you?
Yes.
So we do have a question here that I want to go ahead and address right now, and it is from Miss Jennifer. Thank you for sending in the question. What do you feel like is the biggest obstacle for women supporting or encouraging one another? And I'm going to start with you, Beth. What do you think is the biggest obstacle?
I'll put that right out there. The biggest problem with being on social media is being on social media. So I'm in an industry, I have been in an industry my whole life. I'm in property management. It's mostly women. So it was very competitive early on. That's in the professional world. And then when you get in the Christian world, it's still competitive, because we look at what other people are doing and we can't help but think, well, I wish I could do that. Well, I wish I could do that. But I have found that in my purpose process of learning, and what I did is I came up with 9 purpose principles that I think are applicable to everyone. But we have to know who we're not, and we have to love who we're not. Like, I'm not a preacher. I'm not a Bible teacher. So when I go out and speak, I don't have to be a Beth Moore. I don't have to know Leviticus front to back, because I'm not a preacher and I'm not a Bible teacher. I go and share stories. And it's not about your to-do list. It's your to-don't list. You have to have a to-don't list. So I think when you think in terms of obstacles women face. We are by nature productive people, but we don't want to produce ourselves past our purpose because we think we can do it all. And what happens is we nickel and dime our time. And so instead of investing in the bigger things that God has called us to, the bigger visions, we get really, really busy trying to do a little bit of everything, hoping we don't miss that purpose. So I think that's the obstacle. We're, being on social media and being women makes us hard to slow down and really, really listen to what God is calling us to do. And then at the same time, celebrating other women and celebrating them big. And that's why you're doing what you're doing. I do a lot of podcasts. We want to get people out there. We want to tell everybody what everybody is doing because there's room for all of us.
There's true. Csilla, I love a statement that you have about, and I don't want to massacre this, about when you help other women, you shine. But what do you feel like, Csilla, is the biggest obstacle for women supporting and encouraging each other?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably it's life. We've all got burned once or twice. And I think, sometimes I just know that women can have the, what's the word that I'm looking for? Reputation, I guess, to be like biting at each other. I know my husband works at the hospital and he works mostly with women. He said, unfortunately, he sees women constantly biting at each other. And I think that's one of probably the biggest thing that holds us back. We're afraid of maybe being burned in the process. But what I've learned actually through this whole thing is that when I lead with, I'm just gonna shine the spotlight on you, no matter how you respond, right? Because when we're being nice, we're nice. If you're nice, I'm gonna be nice. But if my value is kindness, I choose to be kind no matter what, no matter your response, right? And so what I've noticed is that women actually respond really well. When I choose to be kind, women respond accordingly. When I give them the benefit of the doubt, when I give people the benefit of the doubt, I feel like that people respond really well. I think it's just many times we come in already kind of apprehensive, and that kind of comes off as guarded. And so honestly, I believe that's one of the biggest things. And the way we overcome that is by choosing to say, I'm gonna be kind anyways, and I'm gonna choose to put the spotlight on you because it's not gonna take away from who I am. And I've seen that work really well in my relationships.
I've seen you do that. I've seen you, and you've done it with me, even. And I've seen each of y'all pour into other women, and don't be afraid that, hey, I'm going to shine the light on you. I'm going to step back just a little bit because that doesn't take away from me. And I feel like as women, we how did your husband say they're biting at each other? I believe that sometimes we do that because we're afraid that someone else will take what we've worked really hard for. How about you, Patty? What do you think is the biggest obstacle?
Yeah, no, I agree with Beth. Comparison is such a trap, and I see a lot of women do it. I've done it myself. It is such a trap. I also believe with what Csilla was saying also, how we get very cautious around each other because we're afraid of being wounded or being hurt by each other, or what Darla had just said, that hey, this is mine, and we start to covet that, and we don't want to share that with someone else. But for me, in our ministry, one of the things I greatly struggle with is dealing with women who are so insecure that it's hard for them to let go and grow. And because of the pain that they've been through, it's hard for them to trust and to believe what I'm trying to tell them, what I'm trying to pour into them, because they have a victim mentality. And one of the things I kind of caution people in is don't do more for someone that you're trying to help than what they're willing to do. And I know that kind of sounds a little harsh, but I see it a lot where we can pour and pour and pour ourselves as caregivers and as mentors and as coaches into people, but they are at a point where they're not able to receive what we're trying to teach them yet. And so it's just learning to love them well at each stage that you have them with. But there are times when you're going to have to take a step back and say, this is not working right now. And when it becomes time, when they are ready, let them know that you are there for them and ready and willing to help them when they're ready to be helped.
That is so true. If there's a caution, and I appreciate y'all all throwing that out there. Yes, we've all been burned. And I appreciate what you said, Csilla. There is a difference between being nice and kind. And the opportunity to be kind is Christ-like. To be kind means that I'm going to live out my value and exemplify to you what I need to do, regardless of what you do. And I know we've all been the recipients of women who have poured into us, and also times that we've been hurt. And it does make you step back and take a breath and go, wow, why did that happen? So as each of y'all have shared that, I would also like to ask y'all to share with the attendees that are watching here, as you're paying it forward and you're investing in other women, what is something, just one thing that just has just touched your heart, has encouraged you that, yeah, I'm going to keep going no matter what. This is what I'm going to keep going. How about you, Csilla?
Oh man, I can tell so many stories, but I think the biggest reward for me is when somebody says, as Beth said, that I saw my story in your story. I feel like you were speaking right to me, and what you shared is exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. And I could have the hardest day, and I could feel horrible. I could feel again or insecure, questioning why am I even here? Why am I even on the stage sharing my story? And at the end of that event, somebody comes up and say, you are exactly what I needed today. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being faithful and sharing your story. And for me, that right there, it just pushes me to show up every single day, even on the days when I don't feel like it, because at the end of the day, as you said, it's not about us.
Beth, how about you, Beth?
I think just having interviewed so many people for so long, I see the perseverance that is required in being in ministry. And so I just think back on all the people that have spoken into my life. There's pain is always part of purpose. And I just, something in me just helps keep me going. And, sometimes I'll say, I'm done. This has been a tough year if you're in ministry, because, it's 2020. And, all my plans were to have my books signed, launched, a big whole to do, and also the TV show. We entered a lot of film festivals. And so it's like we had the big pandemic. Everything that was in our plans got pandemicked. So I'm thinking, well, gee, now what do we do? So when you have those seasons where you have to do the purpose pivot. And I just think that it forces you into a corner to think about, all right, what am I going to do different now? Because I can't just quit. God doesn't, that would not be the right thing. So I started doing new things, and I've learned new skills, and I've been doing podcasts, and I've been doing a lot of different things that kind of help me keep going. And, but I think it's just the stories of so many. When you look at the Bible, nobody had it easy. But at the end of the day, God is doing a work in us. And there's not a time in my life that was really, really hard that I can't look back and say, thank you, God, for what you did in that season. I couldn't see it in the moment. I couldn't see it at the time, but now looking back on some of the hardest seasons of my life, I think, boy, I'm glad I'm done with them, and I don't ever want to go back. But God did something, and he's still doing something in whatever situation it is today for all of us.
How about you, Patty?
I think I'm living their lives. But I could so relate to Csilla. I mean, it's just in that moment when you feel like, oh gosh, what am I doing this for? That you'll get that email, or someone will reach out to you, or you'll get a phone call, or you'll get a letter or card, or somebody saying thank you, I could relate to you, or your book touched my life, or your story touched my life, and that gives you just that little oomph. You know that story of the little boy on the starfish on the beach? You know, there's like millions of them on the beach. And this man comes up and he's watching this little boy chuck these starfish back into the ocean, because if they lay there on the beach, they're going to die, right? And so the man is saying to the little boy, "What are you doing?" He's, "Well, I'm saving these starfish." And the man goes, "Well, you can't save all these starfish. What difference is it going to make? You know, what difference are you going to make?" And so the little boy looks down at all the starfish, and he looks up at the man, and he looks back down at the starfish, and he picks one up and chucks it back in the ocean, says, "Made a difference to that one." So that's kind of how I feel. It made a difference. I made a difference to one person, and that keeps me going to the next person. So I really am there with you, Csilla. And then also with you, Beth, I'm right there with you too. It's like we were going to have a banner year this year. I probably had more events lined up at the start of this year than I've had in a really long time. And then all of a sudden it's like, poof, it's all gone. So what do we do? How do we revamp? And so again, it's that shifting of the gears, but then God created a whole new project. And that's where Freedom Seekers came out of, where now we are starting to minister to people online, which we had never done before. We had always done it, live, the caregiver events, or doing it at live events. But God has said, hey, let's now start ministering to people online. And we're doing Zoom calls, and we have a team of professional counselors that we've brought in. And so, yeah, it's, you got to roll with the punches. And hey, it always seems to work out. God's got a plan.
It does. So coming into this year, I'm a big fan of Mel Robbins, and so I pulled out my 5-second rule planner. I pulled out my one thing planner, and I had 2020 planned out of everything I was going to do. So then in March, I just closed both those books, and I was just like, this is done. And for some of you viewers who lived in Nashville, you know that the week before COVID hit for us all here, we had tornadoes come through. And I got to share this with the group last night. One thing that honestly, it was almost like God was preparing my heart to do this right here, the Lioness Summit, because I got to share this. So we were downtown. I mean, it's a disaster area. Power lines are down, trees are down, homes are torn up. People of every race, every ethnic, every background, every belief, every age were literally working together. There was no division. There was no, I'm a little more important than you, or I believe better than you, or I think no one cared. It was just like, hey, thank you for helping. And it was also the other side of, hey, I've got something I want to share with you. And that's what I look at this that way. Women helping women, we should always, and the Bible is very clear about that. If you have something that you can share with somebody and help them and you don't, wow, you're going to have to answer for that. So whether you're a woman who is the CEO of a company, whether you're a stay-at-home mom and another stay-at-home mom that needs your help, and oh my gosh, everybody that is homeschooling right now, oh my gosh, blessings to all of you, because I cannot fathom trying to work from home. Your spouse is working from home. You've got kids you're having to homeschool. Oh my gosh. So you need other women pouring into you. You need other women investing in you. And that is what y'all have all done today. And I'm so grateful for you, because you've taken time out of your lives. And I know each one of you have packed schedules and very busy. I don't even say the word busy, because that makes it sound like an excuse. Y'all have very intentionally planned out days and very scheduled days. And thank you for being here doing this, pouring into other women so that they can learn about you. And I want to encourage each and every one of you. You got a call. I want to encourage each and every one of you that are watching to check out Patty Mason's site and Chilla's site and Beth Townsend's site, and take a look at these women, their courses, their books, their TV shows, their music, their Bible studies. Whether you're going through depression, whether you're wanting to be better on social media and get more tuned in with that, and you need more encouragement, these women have amazing resources and they are ready to offer this to you. So I really quickly want to make sure that everybody has been given the information. If you'll go onto our Facebook page, our Instagram, on the Lioness Summit, you will see information of how to get in touch with each of these extraordinary women and what they're doing to give back and to make a difference. The legacy they're leaving in the world is phenomenal because they're changing lives. And I firsthand know that this is not because they want a position and high-paying money. Amen. It's because we know this is what we're called to do. And sometimes when you're called to do something, you don't always get what you perceive as that payback. But yet then God shows you in other ways that just blows you away. And I personally know that. And there's a couple of young ladies really quick I want to thank behind the scenes that y'all may not see. And Kendall, thank you so much. Kendall B. Am I saying that correctly? Thank you so much for helping us with all the technology, with all the information that's been going out to y'all. She's been helping me with that. And to Chatham, she has done the same. And she's also given me, she created a mug for me. So I'm excited for this. So if y'all want one of these mugs, let me know and I will get it to you via Chatham. And I will be doing that as well. Any closing words that any of you ladies, I'm going to give y'all just a couple of seconds each. We'll start with you, Beth.
I think in a world that has got a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, the thing that we need to do is think about our stories and submit those before the Lord. Because what the world really needs is authenticity. You know, we need to be real with our struggles. We need to be real with our strengths, but we need to be willing to share with other people the whole us, you know, all of who we are. And I think that women look at women from a standpoint of how they look. And if you look like you've got it all together and, you know, it looks like you've just got this wonderful, successful ministry, that's intimidating to women who are falling apart. And so I think just finding a way to, in media, being real and being authentic and being willing to listen to others is just a very important part of where we are in our world today. So I would say that's a huge part of purpose, is being available, listen, and authentic.
Oh, yes, absolutely. How about you, Patty?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. There are so many people right now that are struggling emotionally. There's a lot of fear, a lot of depression, insecurity, anxiety, so much. So absolutely, just being there, being present in the moment. You never know who, when God puts somebody across from you, listen, the word I'm trying to think of, purpose. Thanks, Beth. Purpose is not necessarily being on stage or having some big ministry. Purpose is in the everyday, in the moment, just getting in there and looking at who and what God has put in front of you in that moment, because you never know how one stone, that one starfish, you never know how that one person you touch can touch so many other lives. So don't look at everybody's big picture and think, oh, wow, that's not me. I could never do that. Now, just embrace the moment and just see what God has for you in the moment. And like Beth said, be real, be authentic, be ready to share your story and allow God to just take it and run with it.
I love it. Back to you, Csilla.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both ladies. And as we've seen, 2020 has definitely been a doozy. But I'm just thinking, you know, because I'm starting to write a new book called Unshattered: How to Rebuild Your Life with one broken piece at a time. And, I think so many of us can look at our lives and think, oh my goodness, I have been through so much. I have been so broken. What could I possibly be offering to people? And we might think, my voice is small. My voice is shaky. I want to encourage every single viewers and listeners to, in spite of how you feel, share your voice, share your story. It matters for that person who needs to hear your message, that person who maybe is hanging on by a thread. Even if your voice is shaking, speak up because your voice is needed.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And think about that. I'm going to take what you said. Your voice is needed. Think of the voices that poured into us and where we're at right now. And had they not taken time to invest in us and pour their voice into us and pour their time into us, we wouldn't have a chance to pay it forward. So every one of you ladies that are watching matter. Your ministry matters, your life matters, your job matters. And I'm a firm believer that your job and your ministry are as one. And whether you are teaching, whether you are a banker, an accountant, that is your ministry, and your voice matters. And you don't have to stand behind a pulpit to share love and hope for people. So I want to encourage you women to have a very courageous week and to live into your purpose. Check out these ladies' sites. And thank you for being here. We will be back again next month with some more speakers, and I look forward to having you again. I just amazing praises and hand clapping and everything for you ladies here today. Thank you for my guests, Patty Mason, Csilla Muscan, and Beth Townsend. Thank you, ladies, for being here. It's been an honor.
Thank you, Darla, for having us. This has been an honor.
Yes, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.